Julian's like a little pixel on Bill's shoulder.
So, I mean, if Bill moves back, are we then morning to you?
Julian made that programme that I'd say about 75% of you hated. Maybe, I don't know, 10% thought it was kind of okay and a decent experiment, and what does that leave? About 15% who loved it and said, great, they really got it.
I mean, well, we should tell you a bit about the background to it, which is that Gareth and I had gone to Venice with another producer, Colin Grant, and we'd been there for 4 days at the launch of the Biennale, the big art exhibition, and one of the things we had done while we were there was to go on to Glass Theory's interactive, immersive artwork and record a lot of stuff. There was 3 or 4 hours of stuff because Gareth recorded his entire experience with the piece. I recorded mine. We did lots of interviews and things like that. And when we got back to the UK, we made the Venice show, which many of you did like, and this stuff was just lying there waiting to be worked on. And we knew it wasn't going to, there was too much there really just for 2 or 3 minutes in a show. It needed a bit more sort of depth in presentation. And that's when Julian had the brilliant idea, I think it was a brilliant idea, of devoting the whole show to it as a special.
But I do understand that obviously, you know, this came really out of left field to probably everybody, you know, who normally
including
listens.
Us.
Including these
who got the email, I think, on the Thursday saying, I've had a brilliant idea.
Don't come into work next week. So, you know, I do appreciate that, you know, for most of you, it must have been really strange to suddenly have that, you know, popping out of your iPod.
You see, they both got to be balanced and reasonable because they work for the BBC.
No, I can give an opinion actually on this, which is actually a refreshing thing to be in as a presenter, so I can actually be completely partisan. And I think when that email came to me from Julian, if I'm honest, I thought, I'm not sure if this is going to work. I don't know if it's going to sustain a whole programme. It definitely needs to be an extended item. We can't just do this in 5 minutes. Anybody who thinks you can, you can't. Seriously, there's so much material there, it would have been a waste of 5 minutes. So I didn't like the idea, but I can honestly say, when I heard it kind of through the podcast, and I hadn't heard any of your editing. So it was the first time I'd heard it since we'd recorded it in Venice, so I had a lag of a good, 4 or 5 weeks. So I came to it as a listener, quite distant from the programme, and I think it worked. I'm just as a listener, I think it succeeded.
Actually, it's really interesting you say that, because I don't know whether it worked, because when I heard it again, I was back there. And so I could feel myself standing at the end of that Calais with the canal in front of me and not wondering who was behind me. So I was instantly emotionally engaged with the material again, to the point where I couldn't discriminate. But I do know it was a really fascinating experiment and a piece of radio art that was worth doing. And I think those listeners who didn't like it, well, fine, you have expectations for Digital Planet. What we like to do is to violate them from time to time, just to make you think differently, because otherwise we end up just doing the same thing. And I think, sort of, there is value in changing the routine, even if you didn't enjoy or appreciate what we actually presented to you. But I actually don't know, and I don't think I will ever know, whether it worked as a piece of radio, because I was still there. And of course that's one of the things that Julian pointed out about Gareth and my different emotional responses to the actual work itself.
That was the thing that, I mean, that's basically the reason I decided to do it, was because because they both reacted so differently to the same stuff, if you like. I mean, in a sense, Gareth continued to sort of try and present the show, to be the presenter. Here I am, taking part in a game, blah, 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 blah. Whereas I think for Bill, it was something somewhat darker, really. He was actually imagining that everybody that he saw as he went round was kind of in on it in some way. I don't know if you remember, bits where he's going, are they tourists over there, or are they in on it? And, oh no, not the child, was one phrase as he went down the street, which was kind of like...
Well, actually, I think I became less of a presenter as we went along. It is true, at the beginning, you set off with a microphone and you do all the things that presenters have to do in describing what's going on and aware that people are going to listen to it, and it's not scripted and you have to try and be their eyes and ears. But I have to say, I think towards the end I was quite immersed, and there is this bit where there's this interrogation, and there are bits, I'm so glad you didn't leave them in, Julian, because they are a bit embarrassed, because I was quite into it. I was genuinely scared in this interrogation and sounded a bit pathetic, so luckily Julian saved us and cut that stuff out.
But I think what we've decided though, because many of you said that you couldn't see the point of it, and that, that of course what you heard was only an edited 24, 25 minutes from a good 3 hours. So for the next 6 shows, we're going to play the whole thing unedited for you to make your own mind up. We think it's the only way to be fair to you, our listeners.
Yeah, well, no, exactly. I mean, what we're going to do actually is role play electrons going around a circuit, basically, in a semiconductor, and we're going to do it through the medium of mime, aren't we? Across 5 special editions of the programme.
So we think you'll really be into it.
It's going to be beautiful. Oh, how we mock. So we're not being at all defensive. You know, people are entitled not to like the programme, and I think.
No, you're not. You didn't like the programme,
yes,
never listen to it again, that's it. We're
Yes.
not your friends anymore.
Yeah, he's just winding you up, you know. So no, and probably actually the way I think about this whole thing is it reminds me of, you know, if there's a pub or a bar that you like to go to, and you walk in there one day and it's been done up and everything's different, you know, the tables are in different places, the bar's been redone, all the drinks are different. You think, what have they done to my favourite bar? What's going on? You know, and maybe that's how I'd have felt about that Digital Planet, but we put the bar back how it was. And your trusty old Digital Planet pub is still intact. I think that's probably as far as I can take
For
that
those of our
metaphor.
listeners who don't drink alcohol, this metaphor can apply to cafes as well.
It can. Well, I was careful to say bar, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean alcoholic.